What's up, squad? It's your squid, and today's video is going to be about Lancelot Threlkeld and the Awakabel people. Although I'm quite certain I've mispronounced both of those names. I've only read them, I've never heard them read out loud. This is what they're spelled like. You can decide on pronunciation, but our buddy Lance was one of the first people to construct a dictionary between Aboriginal and English languages, and I think we should talk about it. His dictionary wasn't the first from that time period, but it absolutely was one of the most detailed, so I want to go into it, and you can look into it yourself. If you don't want to hear me blabbing about it, go onto the New South Wales State Library website. It's been digitised, they're awesome, and you can check it out there. Moving forward from this point, I'm going to be reading from a script that I wrote, and I don't want you guys having a look at me going... So there's just going to be some Australiana and random Australian pictures in front of the screen. If you're watching this on YouTube Premium, if you can close the screen and move away, you should do that now because it's just going to be my voice. And in fact, what you should do is go and fold your washing. I'm sure there's a pile of it somewhere in your house that you're ignoring and not folding it. If you have YouTube Premium and you're listening to this, go and fold your washing while you listen. If not, just leave your phone open. This is Lancelot Threlkeld and the Awakabel people, and I think it's a really cool Australian story that is not really yet on the internet. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know who you think I should look into next, and leave a like button because it really, really helps. Thanks, guys. Here's the script. Lancelot Edward Threlkeld was an English missionary whose work with the Awabakal people of New South Wales, Australia, left a lasting legacy on the preservation of their language and their culture. This video essay will delve into Threlkeld's background, his main reason for travelling to Australia, and his extensive work with the Awabakal people in the area we now know as Lake Macquarie. You can find the documents and primary resources I've used to ascertain all this information at the Library of New South Wales, where Threlkeld's original diaries from the 1800s are still held and preserved in their original condition today in 2024. Incidentally, before we get too far into it, the New South Wales State Library is an amazing place for accessing documents like this. They have William Dawes's diaries that I've written about previously. They've got Charles Sturt's diaries that I've written about previously, Joseph Banks's diaries that I've written about previously, Matthew Flinder's diaries, that you get the point. They also have many other Aboriginal to English dictionaries or word lists from before Threlkeld's time. His are just remembered as being some of the most detailed, which is why we're talking about them today, but there were many beforehand as well. The New South Wales State Library is a place that's well worth checking out, is the point I'm making, if you're ever granted the access. But anyway, let's get back to our mate Threlkeld. Born in 1788 in England, Threlkeld was raised in a devout Christian family. He was ordained as a minister and initially worked in England before joining the London Missionary Society in 1815, who, for those playing along at home, were a non-denominational group of mostly Congregationalists, but our guy Lance was a Protestant. His passion for missionary work and his desire to spread Christianity eventually led him to Australia, where he aimed to work with the Indigenous populations and spread the word of God. In his mind, it was his calling to save the Indigenous peoples and introduce them all to his friend Jesus. If, like me, you aren't religious, this has the potential to come across as condescending, but I think it's worth mentioning that he thought he was doing the right thing. By introducing the Indigenous populations to God, he was saving them from an eternity of punishment in hell, not judging them as barbaric or lesser than, according to his logic. And I do think that motivation is important when assessing the characters of men from this time, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Threlkeld arrived in Sydney in 1824 with his wife and children. The colonial environment presented numerous challenges for them, including resistance from other settlers and difficulties in establishing a stable mission. Threlkeld often found himself at odds with the colonial authorities and other free settlers of the area due to his advocacy for the rights and welfare of the Indigenous Australians. Many free settlers viewed the Indigenous population as obstacles to their expansion, and so they also viewed Threlkeld as a burden on their endeavour to exploit the resources of those people. Despite these obstacles, Threlkeld was determined to carry out his mission and soon focused on the Lake Macquarie region, where he established a mission to work with the local Awabakal people. The Awabakal people traditionally inhabited the area around Lake Macquarie. They had a rich cultural heritage, including a complex social structure, spiritual beliefs, and a distinct language. Early interactions with European settlers were often marked by misunderstanding and conflict, making Threlkeld's approach significantly different and impactful. It's not a stretch of the imagination to say that Threlkeld was the first advocate for the Awabakal people specifically, if not for Aboriginal people on the whole within that area. Threlkeld's work was characterised by a deep respect for the Awabakal culture and language. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he did not seek to erase their cultural identity, but rather to understand it and to document it. His efforts included learning the Awabakal language himself, which he saw as a crucial step in effectively communicating his religious teachings. And it's important to remember that framing, in my opinion. Threlkeld was a halfway point between the abhorrent colonists hell-bent on subjugation of Aboriginal people and the normal, inclusive, everyday Australians you're likely to meet in today's day and age. But he was doing it from a pastoral position. He respected the Awabakal people more than any white man ever had before him, and he believed they were entitled to their language and social practices. But his ulterior motive was indeed to change their spiritual beliefs in the long run. He was a nice man, a nicer man than any other European had ever been to the Awabakal people. However, looking back now, it's important we recognise they still would have considered him an other, and there wasn't yet a halfway point between the cultures. One of Threlkeld's most significant contributions was his work publishing a dictionary of the Awabakal language. He compiled a comprehensive Awabakal English dictionary and documented the grammar and structure of the language within it. These linguistic efforts were hugely pioneering at the time of the 1830s, and they've proved to be invaluable resources for the preservation and study of the Awabakal language, as well as other languages in the nearby region. When combined with William Dawes' works from a few decades earlier and a few hundred kilometres further south within the Eora Nation, or Darug, one starts to get a greater understanding of the syntax of Aboriginal languages on the whole, and one can start to piece together common rules linking cultures like the Romance languages of Europe do. Threlkeld built strong relationships with many members of the Awabakal community, earning their trust through his genuine interest in their culture and well-being. His diaries and letters provide numerous accounts of these interactions, illustrating both the successes and the challenges of his work. Despite his positive intentions, Threlkeld faced significant opposition from colonial authorities and settlers who often viewed his work with suspicion or outright hostility. As a Protestant, he also struggled when interacting with some of the Irish convicts brought to Australia and loaned to him for work in the fields. I'm sure it won't surprise you to hear that Catholics and Protestants didn't like each other back then, but that's a different story for a different day from a different continent. The point is that Threlkeld struggled with the practicalities of sustaining the mission in the face of financial and logistical difficulties as a result of that baked-in religious divide, because most of the so-called free labour offered to him was not actually being offered to him. In short, Threlkeld's advocacy for Aboriginal rights further put him at odds with many of the colonial establishment, but he also struggled to get it off the ground because of the particular flavour of God that he liked. Threlkeld's dedication to the Awabakal people had a profound impact on the preservation of their language and culture. His work laid the foundation for future studies in Aboriginal languages and cultures in Australia. Today, Threlkeld is recognised not only as a missionary, but also as an early anthropologist before we had the word for it, and as well as a linguist whose efforts continue to be valued by both Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians. Lancelot Threlkeld's life and work with the Awabakal people highlight the importance of cultural preservation and respect in missionary and colonial contexts. His achievements in documenting the Awabakal language and advocating for their rights stand as a testament to his enduring legacy. He's another one of what I call the complicated good blokes from Australian history. While it's without question that the genocides, cultural desertification and land theft in Australia was and is abhorrent, awful and unnecessarily hostile, it cannot also be said that men like Threlkeld were oblivious to those facts. Men like Lancelot Threlkeld proved that decent people exist in all periods, and that ghastly behaviour is never simply a product of its time, as you would hear often. His mission, and the advocacy that he championed from within said mission, are proof of that. But that'll do us for today, folks. If you'd like to read the diaries that I read in order to make this video, you can find digitised versions of the New South Wales State Library's website, or you can request to have the access to the originals in person. They will likely deny you, though. I was denied earlier this week, as I don't have a PhD, nor am I getting one. But they claim the option is there for research, so you never know, you might get lucky. as always, you are watching this on YouTube, so if you're still here, I would really appreciate a like, a subscribe, and for you to click that share button and then copy link. It doesn't matter if you actually send the link to anyone, just so long as my YouTube channel thinks you did, it'll help with the algorithm. And it costs you nothing. My channel supporters are on screen now. There's various ways you can become one of them. I like money. Check the description if you want to give me money somehow. Anyway, I appreciate you all. Let me know in the comments if there's anyone or anything you want me to look out for and do a video on next. But failing that, I'll see you when I'm looking at you. You'll see me when you look at me. Thanks so much for watching. Apologies if you heard my kids screaming in the background there. I tried to one-shot that, get that done in one take. But yeah, as I said, hit the like button, leave a comment, and tell me what you think of Lancelot. Sounds like a good bloke, right? Thanks for watching, guys.